Tonight, we begin with the myth of the majestic medieval castle. We're diving into the grim, gritty, and profoundly uncomfortable truth behind those stone walls. Forget the tapestries and troubadours Hollywood sold you. The reality, life in a castle was a drafty, smelly, and politically treacherous ordeal you probably wouldn't survive for a week. Imagine the first thing that hits you isn't the sight of grandeur, but the smell. A thick, complex perfume of wood smoke, damp stone, unwashed bodies, and the faint, sweet rot of a forgotten guard-robe shaft. The air is heavy, cold, and moves in lazy, damp drafts that slither through arrow slits and under ill-fitting doors. Your ears ring with the distant metallic clang of a blacksmith, the scuffing of boots on gritty flagstones, and the constant low murmur of 100 people living on top of each other. You can feel the chill of the stone seeping through your shoes, a deep, stored cold that has been leaching into bones for centuries. So before you get comfortable in your centrally heated home, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Congratulations, you've just arrived at your new home, a towering fortress of stone and supposed power. You are a noble, or at least you're related to one. This isn't a visit, this is your life now. And the castle, your magnificent stone inheritance, is about to welcome you with all the warmth and hospitality of a geological era. The first and most immediate lie the castle tells you is about safety. Yes, those walls are thick. Yes, the gatehouse is intimidating. But from the moment you pass under the portcullis, a rusting iron tooth that looks like it hasn't been lowered in a decade, you realize you've just walked into a very fancy, very cold trap. The courtyard isn't a serene plaza. It's a chaotic, muddy farmyard. Chickens scatter underfoot. A pig roots near the well. Servants and men-at-arms jostle past you, not with bows, but with the weary indifference of people who have seen another face come and go. The air, which you hoped would be clearer outside the Great Hall, is now a swirling cocktail of hay dust, animal dung, and the tangy scent of the tannery located, for some reason, directly upwind. This isn't a bastion of order. It's a small, stressed town that happens to have battlements, and you're supposed to be in charge here. Let's talk about the stone. Everyone romanticizes the stone. They picture smooth, clean blocks, neatly fitted. Reality, the stone is alive. It's weeping. A constant, cold sweat of condensation beads on every surface. Touch a wall. Go on, touch it. Your fingers come away damp and smell faintly of moss and centuries of mildew. This isn't a dry cold. This is a wet cold, the kind that sinks into your joints and sets up shop, a permanent resident that makes your knees ache by the time you're 25. There is no escaping it. The cold radiates from the floors. It blows in through the window openings, because they're not windows, they're just slits, remember. And it settles in the core of the castle like a ghost that forgot how to leave. And the darkness. Oh, the darkness. Forget the great roaring fire in the hall. That fire is a liar. It heats a circle of about 5 feet in front of it, roasting the left side of your body, while your right side slowly succumbs to frostbite. Beyond that circle, the shadows are deep and hungry. Torches gutter and smoke, painting the ceiling with soot and throwing dancing, monstrous shapes on the walls. Candlelight is a luxury, a tiny, precious pool of warmth that does nothing to push back the oppressive gloom of a corridor. You don't stroll through a castle at night. You navigate it one hesitant step at a time, your hand trailing along the damp wall, flinching at every scuttling sound from the corners. The castle is never quiet, and it is never fully lit. It exists in a state of perpetual twilight, both literal and metaphorical. Then there's the noise. A castle is not a library. It is a factory, a barracks, a stable, and a prison, all operating at once. From before sunrise, the sound of hammers from the workshop echoes through the stone chambers. The constant tramp of guards on the wall walk is a rhythmic, ominous heartbeat above your head. Dogs bark. Children. So many children, yours, the servants, random cousins you've never met, scream and run through halls, their voices amplified by the stone acoustics into a piercing cacophony. At night, the snoring. Dear God, the snoring. It's not just one person, it's a chorus, a symphony of guttural rasps and whistles from the dozens of people sleeping in the great hall, in the chambers next to yours, in the rooms above you. There is no such thing as silence. There is only a brief lull in the chaos, a moment you spend waiting, anxiously, for the next sound to break it. And you, the noble, the lord or lady of this magnificent pile of rock, are not above any of it. Your status doesn't magically insulate you from the damp. It doesn't grant you a private, quiet corner. Your chamber, your so-called private solar, is just a slightly larger room with a slightly better tapestry hanging over the dampest part of the wall. You still share your space. Advisors, petitioners, random relatives, and a steady stream of servants are in and out all day. There is no door that locks, no true solitude. You are constantly on display, performing your nobility for an audience that is always watching, always judging the cut of your tunic, the steadiness of your hand, the content of your plate. This is the great secret of castle life. The walls weren't built just to keep enemies out. They were built to keep you in. You are a prisoner of your own station, trapped in a beautiful, brutal cage of stone and expectation. The castle doesn't care about your title. It is a passive, ancient entity that tolerates your presence. It will outlive you. It knows this. And every cold draught, every creeping damp spot, every echoing footfall in the night is just a gentle, constant reminder of that simple, chilling fact. You don't own the castle. You are just its current caretaker, shivering in the dark, waiting for spring, and trying not to think about what's growing in the walls. Continuing on from the general misery of the castle's common areas, you now retreat to your most private sanctuary, the one place you're supposed to be able to let your guard down, your bedchamber. Surely here you can find some comfort, some warmth, some semblance of peace. But the castle laughs at your naivety. It saved some of its most special torments just for this room. Welcome to your bed. It's the centerpiece of the chamber, the symbol of your status. And it's trying to kill you. This isn't a mattress. This is a geological event, a wooden frame stuffed with a lumpy, shifting mass of straw, hay, and occasionally, if someone was feeling generous, wool. It crackles every time you move, releasing a fine dust of ancient plant matter and other, less identifiable particles into the air. That fresh, grassy smell you might be imagining, it left about 3 years ago. Now it smells like a barn that's been sealed shut for a decade, with top notes of human sweat and underlying tones of mold. This is because the stuffing is rarely changed. You don't wash a mattress. You just throw a new layer on top of the old, compacted, sweat-soaked one, creating a sedimentary record of every bad night's sleep you've ever had. And you're not alone in there. The straw is a thriving metropolis for fleas, lice, and bedbugs. Every night is a battle, a tiny, invisible war being waged across the landscape of your body. You scratch in your sleep. You wake up with new, angry red bites in places you didn't know you could itch. Luxury? This is pest control with a canopy. And the blankets. Oh, the blankets. You have a heavy wool blanket, probably woven by someone who hated you. It's scratchy, stiff with grime and body oils, and weighs as much as a small dead animal. It doesn't drape over you. It pins you to the bed, a soggy, oppressive weight that traps the cold dampness against your skin instead of deflecting it. There are no soft linens, no cotton sheets. Those are for richer kings in sunnier lands. You have wool, always wool, itchy, smelly, and when it gets wet from the perpetual damp, It takes on the properties of a cold, dead fish. You wrap yourself in a creature comfort that feels like it's actively resisting your comfort. Now let's talk about the chamber itself. Privacy is a joke, a concept invented by people who hadn't yet mastered the draft. Your door is a plank of wood, warped by moisture, that never quite closes flush with the stone frame. There's a gap you could slide a dagger through. Sound travels through it like it's a dedicated auditory highway. You hear every cough from the guard outside, every whispered conversation from the hallway, every footstep approaching long before the knock comes. And the knocks will come, at all hours. A servant with a message that couldn't wait until dawn. A relative with an urgent matter that's usually about money. The captain of the guard reporting a flickering light in the distant woods. Your bedchamber isn't a retreat. It's just another public office, but with a bed in it. The concept of do not disturb wouldn't just be misunderstood. It would be seen as a dereliction of your duties. You are never off the clock. The castle ensures it. Then there's the heating situation, a tragedy in 3 acts. You might have a fireplace. Congratulations. It's a gaping maw in the wall that does 2 things exceptionally well. It smokes up your room when the wind is wrong, and it devours firewood at an alarming rate. The heat it produces is a cruel illusion. It creates a blistering hot zone about 3 feet in front of it, while the rest of the room remains a refrigerated cellar. So, you have a choice. Roast your face while your back freezes, or stay in the bed and be uniformly, miserably cold. The smoke doesn't always go up the chimney. Sometimes it decides to explore the room, stinging your eyes and coating your already damp lungs with a fresh layer of soot. You go to sleep with the smell of smoke in your hair and on your skin, a constant reminder that even your source of warmth is betraying you. And the windows, don't get your hopes up. They're not for the view. They're narrow arrow slits, sometimes with a piece of oiled parchment or thin scraped animal hide stretched across them. They let in a sickly greyish light but keep out all meaningful heat. The wind whistles through them, a high, thin sound that cuts through the night, carrying with it a fine mist of cold rain. In the winter, frost forms on the inside of the walls around these openings. You wake up to see your own breath clouding in the air above your bed, a personal weather system of misery. You are sleeping in a refrigerator made of stone, and the door is broken. This is your sanctuary. This is where you are supposed to recharge, to dream, to be intimate with your spouse. Instead, it's a damp, itchy, noisy and freezing cold cell where you spend your nights shivering, scratching and listening to the castle breathe around you. The bedchamber exposes the central lie of noble life. All the tapestries on the walls, all the fur trim on your robes, all the gold on your goblets, it's all a desperate performance to distract from the fact that you are sleeping in conditions a modern farmer wouldn't subject his livestock to. You close your eyes, buried under the weight of your scratchy blankets, listening to the wind howl through the arrow slit, and you realize the truth. The castle isn't just your home, it's your roommate, and it's a terrible one. So you've survived another night in your damp, insect-ridden bedchamber. Now, as a grim morning light filters through the parchment-covered slits, it's time for the main event, the heart of castle social life, the Great Hall. This is where you prove your power, your wealth, your generosity. Or more accurately, where you navigate a culinary and political battlefield that would give a seasoned general nightmares. You enter the hall, and the wall of sound and smell hits you first. It's a physical force. Dozens of people are already crammed onto benches at long trestle tables, their voices bouncing off the stone and timber roof into a deafening roar. The air is thick with smoke from the 2 massive fireplaces, smoke that carries the scent of roasting meat, but also the underlying stench of old rushes underfoot. Those rushes on the floor, a charming rustic touch? They're a biohazard. They haven't been changed in weeks. They are a spongy, decomposing layer soaked with spilled ale, grease, animal droppings from the dogs and hawks that wander freely, and whatever else has missed its target. Every step releases a faint, foul odor of fermentation and decay. This is your dining carpet. Welcome to the feast. Let's talk about the food, the glorious centerpiece. That boar's head on a platter looks impressive, doesn't it? It's been turning on a spit for hours, basted with its own grease. But get closer. The outside is charred, the inside is often still chillingly cold in spots. There are no food thermometers. There's only guesswork and prayer. The seasoning is a brutal affair. Vast quantities of salt to try and preserve the meat, which has been hanging in a larder for days, maybe weeks. It tastes less like herbs and spices, and more like a salt lick that's been near something dead. And the presentation? A sign of status? More like a sign of desperation. They cover everything in heavy, spiced sauces, not for flavor, but to disguise the fact that the main ingredient is well on its way to becoming sentient. That peppercorn in the sauce cost more than the serf who cooked it, and it's there to tell you, look how rich I am that I can make this questionable meat expensive. But the food is only part of the terror. The drinking is another. You're drinking ale, weak, small ale, all day, even for breakfast. Why? Because the water will kill you. It's a choice between low-level, constant inebriation and dysentery. The wine, if you have it, is often thick, syrupy, and cut with honey and spices to mask the fact that it started to turn to vinegar. Your goblet is shared. You take a sip and pass it to your neighbor, who has a visible cold sore and a cough they're not covering. He drinks, wipes his mouth with his sleeve, and passes it on. There are no individual cups. There is only the communal cup of potential plague. Now, let's get to the utensils, or the lack thereof. You have a knife. You brought it. Everyone has their own knife. It's used for everything, cutting your food, picking your teeth, occasionally settling a minor dispute. Forks are a bizarre foreign concept, a devil's instrument, so you eat with your hands, your greasy, sticky, sauce-covered hands. And there are no napkins. You wipe your hands on the tablecloth, on your clothes, or on a piece of bread that you then, in a moment of performative charity, might toss to the dogs scrounging under the table. The dogs are your cleaning crew. They are the most efficient sanitation system in the room, and they are licking the same floor the rushes are decomposing on. And the people. This isn't a relaxed dinner party. This is a high-stakes political theater where every seating arrangement is a message and every toast is a threat. You are on display. You must eat with gusto to show your strength, but not too much, lest you look like a glutton. You must laugh at the Lord's jokes, even when they're not funny. You must make conversation with the person to your left, who you know for a fact is scheming to marry his dim-witted son to your daughter for a slice of your land, all while trying not to gag on a piece of grisly, suspect meat. The noise is unbearable. Minstrels are playing loudly in a corner, competing with the barking dogs, the shrieking of a falcon tied to a perch, and the general roar of 100 drunk, shouting people. This isn't leisure. It's a form of work, and it's exhausting. The feast drags on for hours. Course after heavy course of stewed, roasted, and boiled mystery, your stomach groans under the weight of it all. You feel bloated, slightly drunk from the ale, and your head is pounding from the noise. And just when you think it's over, the subtleties arrive, ornate sugar sculptures that are more architecture than food. You break them apart, getting sticky sugar all over your already greasy hands, a final cloying insult to your digestive system. You retire from the great hall, feeling not nourished, but assaulted. Your clothes smell of smoke and spilled wine, your fingers are sticky, your head is throbbing, and your gut is staging a rebellion. The Great Hall wasn't a place of celebration, it was a test of endurance, and you have to do it all again tomorrow. So you've escaped the auditory and digestive assault of the Great Hall, your stomach churning from the questionable feast. But nature, indifferent to your noble status, now calls. And in a medieval castle, answering that call is not a private moment of relief. It's a terrifying, humiliating, and downright hazardous expedition into the architectural underbelly of your own home. You don't just walk to a bathroom. You embark on a journey to the garderobe. The name sounds fancy, like a French boutique for fine linens. It is a lie. The garderobe is the castle's toilet, and it is a masterpiece of medieval horror. It's usually a small, drafty chamber tucked into the thickness of the outer wall. Or worse, a stone seat projecting out from the wall itself, a precarious perch over oblivion. You don't find it by sight, you find it by smell. A thick, eye-watering miasma of ammonia and decay guides you like a foul beacon. Follow your nose, they say. In a castle, this is not a metaphor. Let's describe the experience. You enter the tiny chamber. There's a hole in the stone seat. That's it. No tank, no flush, no pipe, just a hole. And when you look down that hole, you don't see water, you see darkness. A long, dark shaft that plummets down the inside of the castle wall, sometimes straight into the moat below, sometimes into a cesspit at the base of the castle that is rarely, if ever, cleaned. The draught that blows up from that hole is Arctic. It's a cold, damp wind that carries with it the concentrated essence of every person who has ever lived in this castle for the last 100 years. It's a geological vent of pure stench. This is the castle breathing its foul breath directly onto you. Sitting down is an act of courage. The stone is freezing, even through your layers of clothing. The wind whistles around you, a constant, chilling reminder of the drop below. And the sounds, oh, the sounds. You can hear the distant wet splashes from above and below as other residents of the castle use their own garderobes. It's a symphony of waste, a dripping, splattering chorus that echoes up and down the shared shafts. Privacy is, once again, a fantasy. The sound of your most private functions becomes public domain, broadcast through the stonework for all to hear. You can have a conversation with the person in the garderobe next to you if you were both so inclined and could hold your breath long enough. But the physical discomfort is nothing compared to the biological terror. This is where the castle truly tries to murder you. That shaft isn't just a disposal chute, it's a highway for disease. The runoff seeps into the ground, contaminating the water supply if your well is too close. The stench that permeates the very stone is a soup of bacteria and parasites. Dysentery, typhoid, cholera. They aren't abstract concepts. They are the literal air you breathe for those few terrifying minutes. Flies buzz in a constant cloud, moving freely from the pit below to the pantry where your food is stored. There is no separation. The cycle is horrifyingly short and direct. And let's talk about the toilet paper. There is none. You use a handful of straw, a bundle of hay, or if you're feeling particularly regal, a scrap of old cloth or moss. That's right, you wipe with the same material that's stuffing your mattress and probably housing a family of fleas. It's scratchy, ineffective, and arguably less hygienic than just not wiping at all. Some accounts suggest the wealthy might use lamb's wool, but let's be real, it's still just pushing around the problem with a slightly softer material. The concept of cleanliness here is so alien, it might as well be magic. Then there are the legends, the whispered horrors that make the experience even more psychologically damaging. The stories about rats climbing up the shafts. True, probably not often. But do you want to take that risk when you're at your most vulnerable? The tales of enemies, centuries ago, who infiltrated a castle by climbing up the filth-clogged garderobe shaft. Is it possible? The thought alone is enough to make you clench every muscle in your body, turning a moment of relief into a tense, paranoid vigil. You don't relax on the garderobe, you perch. You're a sentry on the worst watchtower in history, waiting for an attack from below. You finish your business as quickly as humanly possible, your lungs burning from holding your breath. You emerge back into the corridor, gasping for what passes for fresh air in the castle, your clothes now carrying a faint, lingering ghost of the garderobe's aroma. It clings to you. You'll smell it on your hands for hours, a constant intimate reminder of your own mortality and the castle's fundamental filth. The garderobe isn't just a toilet, it's a memento mori carved in stone, a daily humbling lesson that no matter how high your status, you are still just an animal, and the castle is more than happy to process you accordingly. Emerging from the garderobe's foul atmosphere, you might think anything would feel warmer by comparison. But the castle has a different lesson to teach you. The cold you experienced in that shaft isn't an anomaly. It's the default state of existence here. It's a deep stored chill that has been soaking into these stones for centuries, and now it's trying to soak into you. This isn't a fresh, crisp winter cold. This is a damp, penetrating geological cold. It's the cold of the earth itself, radiating up through the flagstone floors. It's the cold of 1,000 rainy seasons absorbed by thick walls that never fully dry out. You don't just feel it on your skin, you feel it in your bones. It's a deep, aching presence that settles in your joints, making them stiff and sore by the time you're 30. You wake up with it, you eat with it, you go to sleep with it. The cold is your most constant companion, and it is relentlessly, miserably loyal. Let's debunk the great fireplace myth. Yes, there are fireplaces. Massive roaring affairs in the Great Hall and sometimes in your chamber, but they are liars. They create the illusion of heat, not the reality. A fireplace heats a tiny, intense bubble of space directly in front of it. Stand 3 feet away and you might as well be outside. The heat doesn't circulate. It rises straight up to warm the rafters and the bats nesting there. The rest of the room remains a refrigerated cellar. So you have a choice. Roast the front of your body like a joint of meat while the back of you freezes, or retreat from the fire and be uniformly, utterly cold. There is no middle ground. There is only the tyranny of the heat gradient, and the cost of this pathetic illusion is astronomical. Firewood is a precious commodity. Forests are owned, and cutting wood is a regulated, expensive privilege. You are constantly calculating the cost of warmth. Do you burn another log tonight, or do you save it for a more important guest tomorrow? The fire is a luxury, not a utility. On a bitter winter night, you might go to bed early, not because you're tired, but because it's the only way to escape the cold, huddling under your mountain of blankets in a desperate, shivering attempt to preserve your own body heat. The fire doesn't warm the room. It just makes the surrounding cold feel that much more cruel by comparison. Then there's the damp, the cold's evil twin. The stone walls weep with condensation, a constant cold sweat that never evaporates. Your clothes, hung in a wardrobe, never feel dry. They are always slightly clammy, carrying the chill directly against your skin. Your wool blankets are heavy with moisture. Your leather shoes never fully dry out, and putting them on in the morning is a fresh shock of cold, damp disgust every single day. This damp cold is a different beast altogether. It slithers through your layers, bypassing wool and fur to lay its icy fingers directly on your flesh. It's the kind of cold that gives you a perpetual, low-grade chill, a shiver you can't quite shake, a sniffle that never quite becomes a cold but never quite goes away. The castle's design is your enemy in this. Those majestic, towering rooms with their high ceilings, their heat sinks. All the warm air from your pathetic fire floats up to the ceiling, leaving you in a pool of cold air at ground level. The narrow, arrow-slit windows aren't just for defense. They're perfect for letting in a constant, focused stream of icy wind while letting out virtually no light. You stuff them with rags and straw, but the wind just finds another way in. There is no insulation. There is only stone, and stone is a fantastic conductor of cold. The outside temperature and the inside temperature are in a constant losing battle, and the outside always wins. The psychological effect is grinding. The constant cold is exhausting. It saps your energy, your will, your optimism. It makes every task harder, every moment less pleasant. It fosters a kind of low-grade misery that becomes the background hum of your life. You stop dreaming of grand conquests or romantic trysts. You dream of being warm, truly, deeply warm. You find yourself standing over the kitchen hearth, not for the food, but for the radiant heat from the oven. You develop a strange jealousy of the servants who sleep in the kitchen, nestled next to the warm stones. The cold doesn't just freeze your body, it freezes your spirit. It reminds you, hour by hour, that you are fragile, mortal, and utterly at the mercy of your environment. The castle's chilling embrace isn't just uncomfortable, it's a daily, subtle assault on your very will to live. The cold is a physical pressure, but the smell is a psychological invasion. You can bundle up against the chill, but there is no escaping the odor. It is the castle's true atmosphere, a thick, complex tapestry of stench that you don't just smell, you taste. It coats the back of your throat, a permanent low-level flavor of decay and humanity that becomes the baseline of your existence. Let's break down the symphony, movement by movement. The first and most constant note is the people. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of them, living in close quarters. Forget modern body odor. This is something else entirely. This is the smell of wool clothing that hasn't been properly washed in months, soaked with sweat, smoke and spilled food, then dried on the body. It's the smell of unbrushed teeth and gum disease, a sweet rotten breath that hangs in the air during conversations. It's the smell of fungal infections, of feet wrapped in damp cloth, of hair thick with grease, and old perfume that's gone sour. You don't get used to it. You go nose blind to specific elements, but the overall effect is a constant, low-grade assault on your senses. Then comes the animal section of our symphony. The dogs are not pets. They are mobile odor units. They smell of wet fur, of the offal they're fed, of the rotting rushes they sleep on. The hunting hawks and falcons on their perches add their own sharp, wild, fecal note. Horses are brought into the lower halls, their scent of manure, sweat and leather mingling with everything else. Mice and rats die in the walls, and for a week a new, sweetly putrid note joins the chorus until it fades into the background hum. There are no boundaries, no outside for these smells. They live with you. They are you. Now, add the food movement. This isn't the smell of cooking, it's the smell of impending spoilage. The larder is a room of hanging meats, slowly curing in smoke and salt, but always on the verge of turning. The smell of old blood and aging fat is pervasive. The dairy has its own sour tang. Milk is always on the edge of curdling. Butter often carries the faint, rancid note of having been stored too long. Vegetables, stored for winter, add an earthy, slightly mouldy undertone. And cutting through it all, the pungent, overwhelming reek of the kitchens, boiling bones, frying fat, and the bitter smoke from fires that are never quite right. But the star performer, the soloist that rises above all others, is the garderobe. Its contribution is not a single note, but a pervasive bass line, a deep, foul drone that underpins every other smell. It's the smell of ammonia so strong it makes your eyes water from 20 feet away. It's the smell of centuries of human waste fermenting in pits and leaching into the stone. On a warm day, this smell doesn't just linger near the latrine. It blooms. It spreads through the castle like a ghost, a visible haze of foulness that seeps under doors and through corridors. You don't just smell it when you go there. You smell it when the wind changes, when you pass a certain stairwell, when you wake up in the morning. It is the castle's breath, and it is foul. And finally, the building itself adds its own notes. The ever-present damp stone smells of moss and wet earth, a cold fungal scent. The rushes on the floor, as we've established, are a composting layer of organic matter, releasing a faint, beer-like odor of fermentation. The tapestries on the walls, meant to show wealth, are heavy with dust and smoke, smelling like a forgotten attic. Even the smoke from the fires, which you'd think would cleanse, only adds another layer, a thick, acrid smell that clings to your hair and clothes, a constant reminder that the air itself is unclean. This symphony has no intermission. It plays 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You eat with it, you sleep with it, you conduct business with it. It clings to your clothes, your hair, your skin. You carry the smell of the castle with you, a personal cloud of stench that announces your presence long before you arrive. After a while, you stop noticing it on yourself, but you become hypersensitive to it on others. You can tell who has just come from the stables, who has been near the tannery, who has been lingering in the garderobe chamber. The smell is a map of everyone's movements, a social history written in odor. It is inescapable, undeniable, and utterly degrading. The castle doesn't just look ancient and powerful, it smells ancient and powerful. And the message it sends with every foul draft is simple. You are living in the belly of a beast, and it is slowly digesting you. The smells and the cold are bad enough, but they are merely the environment. Now meet your actual roommates, the ones who don't pay rent, don't acknowledge your noble status, and are actively trying to eat you, your food, or the very structure of your home. You share this stone fortress with a thriving hidden civilization of creatures that see your castle not as a stronghold, but as an all-you-can-eat buffet with premium damp housing. Let's start with the rats. Not cute cartoon rats. These are medieval rats, the size of small cats, with greasy fur and eyes that gleam with a terrifying intelligence in the torchlight. They are everywhere. You hear them at night, a constant skittering in the walls, a scratching in the ceiling above your bed. They nest in the thatch, they swim in the moat, they boldly traverse the great hall during feasts, waiting for a scrap to fall. They are not afraid of you. You are merely a large, noisy obstacle in their world. They chew through grain sacks, spoiling precious winter stores. They gnaw on leather, on wood, even on the lead strips holding your precious stained glass in place. And they carry diseases that make the garderobe's offerings look like a mild sniffle. The Black Death wasn't some abstract historical event. It was a passenger on the backs of these furry, uninvited guests. And they are your constant companions. Then come the insects. If the rats are the army, the insects are the occupying force. Fleas are a fact of life, a persistent biting misery that lives in your straw mattress, in the rushes, in the fur of the dogs, and most of all, on you. You scratch constantly. You develop a nervous twitch, a perpetual fidget as you feel imaginary and very real, pricks along your skin, your ankles, your back. Your body is a landscape of red, itchy bites. Lice are another special horror, setting up camp in your hair and in your pubic region. They lay eggs, nits, that cling to your hair shafts with a biological glue stronger than any mortar in the castle walls. Combing them out is a painful, time-consuming and ultimately futile ritual. You shave your head? They'll just move to your beard, your eyebrows, anywhere with hair. They are tenacious, democratic, and utterly shameless. But let's not forget the flies. A constant buzzing cloud around the garderobes, the kitchens, the midden heaps. They land on your food, their feet still coated with the waste from their last landing spot. Then they buzz past your face, inspecting your eyes and mouth for potential moisture. In the summer, their drone is the soundtrack to your life, a sound so persistent you almost miss it when it's gone. And then there are the bedbugs, the silent assassins that emerge from the crevices of your wooden bed frame at night to feast on your blood, leaving trails of itchy welts in their wake. You go to sleep not knowing you're the main course. And it's not just the small stuff. Weasels and stoats slip in through cracks, hunting the mice, but also developing a taste for chicken eggs and occasionally a sleeping chick. Bats roost in the high, dark rafters of the great hall, their droppings adding a sharp, acrid note to the symphony of stench below. Birds nest in the arrow slits, their chirping a deceptively pleasant sound that masks the damage their nests are doing to the masonry and the mess they're leaving on the walls below. Spiders the size of your hand weave intricate, sticky webs in corners, capturing the smaller flies, but also ensuring you walk face first into a nightmare when you take a wrong turn in a dark corridor. There is no pest control. There is only coexistence. You might get a cat, but the cat is just another roommate with its own agenda, one that involves bringing you half-dead mouse presents and yowling at the moon at 3 a.m. You might try herbs, like strewing mint or wormwood in the rushes, but this is like trying to stop a flood with a teacup. The smell might be masked for an hour, but the creatures themselves remain, unmoved and unimpressed by your botanical efforts. The psychological toll is immense. You are never alone. Every rustle in the night, every scuttle in the corner, every bite on your skin is a reminder that you are not the master of this domain. You are just the largest, slowest moving resident in a complex ecosystem. You lie in bed at night, listening to the rats having a convention in your ceiling, feeling the fleas begin their nightly feast, and you realize the truth. The castle was not built to keep these things out. It was built to keep them in. You are living in a beautifully constructed, stone-walled infestation, and you are on the menu. So you've met your unwanted roommates, and now it's time to see what's on the menu for both you and them. The food, that glorious symbol of wealth and power you see in paintings. The truth is, your plate is a battlefield of monotony, suspicion, and biological Russian roulette. Every meal is a calculated risk, and the house always wins. Let's start with the sheer soul-crushing boredom of it all. Your diet is dictated by the seasons, and winter is a special kind of culinary hell. Imagine months, sometimes 6 or 7 straight, of salt. Salted meat, salted fish, grains boiled in salted water. Your palate isn't just bored, it's in open rebellion. Your tongue feels perpetually leathery, your body permanently thirsty. The salt isn't just for flavor, it's a desperate attempt at preservation, and it preserves the misery as perfectly as the pork. Vegetables. In winter, you have turnips. And more turnips. Boiled turnips, mashed turnips, turnips floating in a thin, salty stew that also contains more turnips. The concept of a varied, balanced diet is a fantasy. You are not eating for pleasure, you are eating for fuel, and the fuel is terrible. Then there's the preservation problem. That boar you hunted in the autumn. It's hanging in a cool, dark larder, slowly drying out. But cool and dark in a castle is also damp. Meat doesn't dry, it slowly ferments. It develops a slick, sticky surface and a funky, cheesy odor. This is normal. This is what you eat. You tell yourself the heavy spices and sauces mask the taste, but you're lying. You can still taste the faint, off note of protein decay underneath the cinnamon and cloves. Every bite is a question. Is this just aged, or is this the first step on the road to violent, gut-wrenching food poisoning? You chew slowly, tentatively, waiting for your stomach to signal an all-out revolt. And the bread, the staff of life. It's your main calorie source, and it is not your friend. It's dark, heavy, and gritty. The flour is coarse, often mixed with bran, chaff, and occasionally, when times are lean, things like ground acorns or even sawdust to make it stretch further. It's so hard you need a serious knife to cut it, and using a day-old loaf as a plate, the trencher, isn't a quaint tradition. It's a necessity because the bread is practically waterproof and plate hard. But the real terror is ergot, a fungus that can grow on rye, causing convulsions, hallucinations, and a condition known as St. Anthony's fire, which can lead to gangrene and limbs falling off. You break open a loaf, and sometimes you see the dark, purplish splotches. Do you eat it and risk a trip to hell, or do you go hungry? That's your choice. The bread is trying to kill you in more ways than one. Even when the food is fresh, it's a political minefield. Every meal in the Great Hall is a performance. You are served in order of rank. Who gets the first cut of the meat? Who gets the whitest bread? Who is served the rare, expensive fruit? Every placement on the table is a message. If you're given a lesser cut, it's a public humiliation. If a rival is served before you, it's a challenge. You're not eating, you're decoding a continuous stream of social slights and power plays. You can't even enjoy a simple chicken leg without analyzing what it means that your neighbor got a thigh and you got a wing. The food is fuel, yes, but it's also a weapon, and you are both the wielder and the target. And let's talk about your teeth. This diet is destroying them. The gritty bread acts like sandpaper, wearing them down to stumps. The lack of fresh fruit and vegetables means gum disease is rampant. A toothache isn't a minor inconvenience, it's a debilitating, life-altering agony. There are no dentists, only barbers with pliers and a sadistic streak. The solution to a throbbing molar is to have it ripped out of your head with a pair of unsterilized iron pincers, often causing a secondary infection that kills you. So you live with the constant background thrum of dental pain, chewing carefully on the softer side of your mouth, dreading the day the pain becomes unbearable. The feast, then, is the greatest lie of all. It's not abundance, it's concentrated performative misery. It's all the salt, all the questionable meat, all the political tension and all the dental pain, but multiplied by 100 and served under the blinding pressure of public scrutiny. You leave the table not satisfied, but swollen, gassy, paranoid and in pain. Your castle's pantry may be full, but it's a treasury of threats. Every meal is a reminder that your body is not a temple. It's a crumbling fortress under constant siege from within, and the enemy is on your plate. Leaving the great hall with your stomach in rebellion, you might hope for some physical comfort. But the castle has one more intimate betrayal in store. It's not just what you put in your body that causes agony, it's what you put on it. Your clothing, your armor, your very relationship with cleanliness is designed to make every moment of your existence a study in persistent, low-grade torment. Let's start with the foundational layer, the linen tunic. It's scratchy, rough, and never truly clean. Washing it is a days-long ordeal involving hauling water, beating it with ashes, and hoping it dries before it mildews in the damp air. So you don't wash it often, you wear it for days, sometimes weeks. It becomes stiff with dried sweat, stained with food and spilled wine, and it chafes against your skin with every movement. Underneath it, if you're lucky, you might have a pair of breeches or hose that are constantly bagging at the knees and sagging in unfortunate places. There are no elastic bands, there are only ties and prayers, and both fail with alarming regularity. Then comes the wool. Always the wool, your outer tunic, your cloak, your everything. Wool is warm, yes, but it's also a biological weapon against comfort. When it's new, it's scratchy. When it's been worn for a while, it becomes matted with grease, dirt, and body oils, turning stiff and heavy. It doesn't breathe, it stews. You sweat in it. The moisture has nowhere to go, and the wool just absorbs it, becoming a damp, itchy, smelling blanket that you're trapped inside. In the summer you roast. In the winter, the damp wool holds the cold against your skin just as effectively as it holds in your body odor. There is no winning. There is only itching. And let's talk about the strategic layer of filth. You quickly learn that a certain amount of grime is not just inevitable, it's functional. That layer of grease and dirt caking your wool cloak. It actually makes it more windproof and water-resistant. Washing it too often would strip that away, leaving you colder and wetter. So you embrace the crust. You wear your grime like armor. You smell like a goat who lost a bar fight. But at least the wind doesn't cut through you quite as badly. It's a devil's bargain. Comfort for basic hygiene. You choose being marginally less cold over not smelling like a bog corpse. Now, the shoes. If you're lucky, you have leather shoes. They are not left and right. They are two identical, shapeless sacks for your feet. They're made of untreated leather that stiffens when it's cold and gets soft and slimy when it's wet. There is no arch support. There is no cushioning. There is just a thin layer of leather between your feet and the frozen, uneven flagstones. Walking any distance is a lesson in pain. Blisters are a given. Bunions are your future. Many peasants go barefoot, and after a mile in your noble shoes, you start to understand why. Your feet are permanently cold, damp and sore. They're the foundation of your entire body, and the castle is systematically destroying them, one uncomfortable step at a time. But the pinnacle of sartorial torture is reserved for formal occasions. The armor. That gleaming suit of plate armor in the hall isn't for show. It's a necessity, and it is a personal prison. Putting it on requires assistance. It's a 20-minute procedure of buckling, tying, and squirming into a metal shell. Once it's on, your world shrinks. You can't scratch your nose. You can't easily sit down. You can't hear anything but the roar of your own breathing and the pounding of your heart, amplified in the metal helmet. In the sun, it bakes you alive. In the rain, it rusts and the rivets freeze up. It weighs 60 pounds or more, distributed across your body, yes, but still turning every movement into a strenuous effort. It's not just wearing heavy clothes, it's having a second, colder, heavier skeleton built outside your own. And if you fall over, you're a turtle on its back, waiting for someone to help you up or finish you off. And bathing? Forget bathing. The concept is practically heresy. Submerging yourself in water is believed to open your pores to disease. So you don't bathe. You might wipe yourself down with a cloth. You might use perfumes and herbs to mask the smell, but you never, ever get truly clean. Your hair becomes a matted, greasy nest, perfect for lice. Your skin develops a permanent patina of dirt. You are a walking ecosystem, and the ecosystem is thriving. The itch is constant. It's on your scalp, your back, between your legs, under your arms. It's 1,000 tiny pinpricks of annoyance that never go away, a background static of discomfort that frays your nerves and your patience. You are never comfortable in your own skin because your own skin hasn't been properly cleaned since you got here. The castle hasn't just invaded your space, it's invaded your pores. The physical discomforts are brutal, but they're almost a welcome distraction from the true prison you inhabit, the invisible cage of protocol. You can't scratch, you can't relax, you can't even speak without running a complex mental algorithm of social rules that, if broken, could cost you land, influence, or your head. Every moment is a performance, and the audience is always watching, always judging. Your day doesn't begin when you wake up. It begins with a meticulously choreographed ritual of dressing. You don't just put on clothes, you don your station. Each layer, the linen shift, the tunic, the surcoat, the mantle, is a statement. The quality of the fabric, the richness of the dye, the fur on the trim, it's all a walking ledger of your wealth and power. A servant helps you, but even this is a power play. Who is allowed to hand you your belt? Who fastens your cloak? The hierarchy extends down to who touches your underwear. You stand there, arms outstretched, while people swarm around you, and you realize you're not a person. You're a mannequin for your own status. Then comes the walk. You don't just walk through the castle. You process. Your pace is measured. Your posture is rigid. You must look neither hurried nor lazy, neither arrogant nor meek. You are on display from the moment you leave your chamber. Who you acknowledge with a nod, who you ignore, who you stop to speak with for exactly 3 sentences, it's all a complex dance. A slight miscalculation, like smiling too warmly at a lesser knight's wife, can spark rumors of an affair, or worse, a political alliance that you never intended. A frown at the wrong moment can be interpreted as a declaration of feud. Your face is a mask, and the strings are pulled by 1,000 unwritten rules. Now let's talk about conversation. This isn't chatting. This is verbal combat with sheathed blades. Every word has weight. You must be eloquent but not showy, witty but not cruel, informed but not nosy. You must remember everyone's titles, their family connections, their recent victories and shames. Forget that Baron Fitzwalter's daughter recently married into a family you're feuding with, and your casual inquiry about his health becomes a deadly insult. There is no such thing as small talk. There is only tactical dialogue. You spend entire conversations mentally passing sentences, searching for hidden meanings, double entendres, and subtle threats disguised as compliments. It's exhausting. A simple "how do you fare" could mean "I've heard you are ill and I'm assessing your weakness," or "I hope you are well because I need a favor." The Great Hall is the grand stage for this theatre of anxiety. Your seat at the high table isn't just a place to eat, it's a geopolitical map. Who sits to your right? That's the position of highest honor. Who sits to your left? That's the second most important. The arrangement is a public declaration of your current alliances and enmities. Shift someone 2 seats down and you've just started a cold war. You eat under this pressure, making polite conversation with the person next to you, while simultaneously trying to eavesdrop on the conversation 3 seats down, all while ensuring your table manners are impeccable, because God forbid you spill wine on your tunic or use the wrong knife. Every meal is a high-stakes diplomatic summit where the main course is stress and the dessert is paranoia. Even your leisure is a job. Hunting isn't fun. It's a display of martial skill and wealth. You must ride well, handle your hawk with grace, and make the kill look effortless. A falcon that doesn't perform is a reflection on you. A stumble from your horse is a humiliation that will be whispered about for weeks. Listening to a minstrel isn't about enjoying music. It's about being seen, to appreciate culture, to clap at the right moments, to reward the performer with a suitable gift that reflects your generosity but doesn't make you look like a profligate fool. There is no off switch. There is no moment where you can just be yourself, because yourself is a liability. The psychological toll is immense. You develop a constant low-grade headache from the pressure. You lie awake at night, replaying conversations, worrying about a misplaced word or a misinterpreted glance. You are surrounded by people, but you are profoundly alone. You can trust no one because anyone could be reporting your every move to a rival. A friendly confessor, a loyal-seeming servant, a beloved cousin. They are all potential leaks in the dam of your reputation. This constant vigilance is more draining than any physical labor. The castle's stone walls are nothing compared to the fortress you must build around your own personality, your own thoughts, your own desires. You are the warden and the inmate in the prison of protocol, serving a life sentence with no possibility of parole. And if you're thinking of just saying, "to hell with it," and being informal, that's the fastest way to lose everything. Informality is weakness. It shows you don't take your responsibilities seriously. It tells your vassals you can be challenged. It tells your rivals you are vulnerable. So you keep up the act. You smile when you want to scream. You bow when you want to punch. You speak in careful, measured tones when you want to let loose a torrent of fury. You are not a person. You are a title, a symbol, a piece on a chessboard, and the game never ends. If the cold and the smell don't break you, the sheer soul-crushing weight of etiquette surely will. The prison of protocol is a constant internal pressure, but it pales in comparison to the external threat that hangs over every day, every decision, every stone of your so-called home. The siege. You aren't just living in a castle, you are manning a defensive position. The possibility of being trapped within your own walls isn't a distant nightmare. It's a core part of your strategic reality, and it poisons every moment of peace. Look out from the wall walk. That beautiful rolling countryside isn't a vista, it's a killing field. Every distant cloud of dust could be an approaching army. Every traveler on the road could be a scout. That peaceful village in the valley, a source of food, yes, but also a potential source of betrayal if your enemy offers them a better deal. You don't see pastoral beauty. You see tactical advantages and vulnerabilities. The forest provides cover for approaching troops. The river could be dammed to cut off your water supply. Your home is a target, and the world outside is the aiming point. Let's talk about the waiting. A siege isn't just battle. It's 95% soul-crushing boredom punctuated by 5% sheer pants-wetting terror. You're constantly on edge, watching, waiting. The guards on the wall walk aren't just for show. They're your early warning system, and their fatigue is your vulnerability. You try to maintain a normal routine, the feasts, the hunts, the audiences, but it's all a desperate performance of normalcy. Underneath the courtly laughter, everyone is listening. Listening for the blast of a horn, the shout of a sentry, the first thunderous impact of a trebuchet stone against your walls. The tension is a physical presence, a wire pulled taut in your chest that never relaxes. And when it comes, the siege doesn't announce itself with a polite letter. It begins with smoke, columns of black smoke rising from your outlying villages, your farms, your mills. Your enemy is burning your food, your income, your future. They're not just attacking a castle, they're erasing your presence from the land. Then you see them, a dark, crawling mass on the horizon, moving with the terrible, organized slowness of an incoming storm. The gates slam shut, the portcullis grinds down, and with a final metallic shriek, you are sealed in your own tomb. Now the true horrors begin. The first and most immediate is the noise, the constant deafening crash of siege engines against your walls, the whistle of incoming arrows, the shouts and chants of the army below, the screams of the first wounded. It's a cacophony designed to break your will before the walls break. You can't sleep, you can't think. The sound vibrates through the stone, a constant physical pounding that becomes the soundtrack to your terror. Then comes the smell of a siege, a new layer added to the castle's already rich olfactory tapestry. The acrid scent of smoke from fires you can't control. The smell of burning pitch and oil from your own defensive measures. And soon, the sweet, sickly stench of death. Bodies, left in the no-man's land between the walls and the enemy lines, begin to bloat and rot in the sun. The smell carries on the wind, a grim promise of what awaits you if you fail. It seeps through arrow slits, under doors, a constant reminder of your mortality. But the external assault is only half the battle. The real siege is internal. It's the slow, grinding calculus of resources. How much grain is in the storerooms? How many arrows are in the armory? How many buckets of water are left to fight the fires the flaming arrows will start? You start rationing immediately. The feasts stop. The hearty, salty meals become thin gruel and hard bread. Your stomach, already unhappy, now gnaws on itself with genuine hunger. The castle, once a symbol of abundance, becomes a landscape of scarcity. You look at your fellow residents not as companions, but as mouths to feed. Every child, every elderly relative, every non-essential servant is a drain on precious supplies. The thought, dark and unspoken, enters your mind. How many people can we afford to keep alive? The psychological warfare is perhaps the most brutal. The enemy will try to parley, offering you terms. They'll shout promises, threats, and lies up at your walls. They might even catapult the heads of captured allies into your courtyard. They will play on every fear, every insecurity. They'll point out the weaknesses in your walls that you've been trying to ignore. They'll remind you of the family you have inside, the children who will starve or be put to the sword. They will turn your own mind against you. Trust evaporates. Is that servant looking at the grain stores with a little too much interest? Is that knight whispering with his men? Is your own spouse considering surrender to save their skin? The siege doesn't just test your walls, it tests every human bond within them. You are living in a pressure cooker of fear, hunger, and noise. The castle, your protector, has become your cage. The thick walls that were supposed to keep danger out now seem to be holding the terror in, concentrating it. Every day under siege is a lifetime of anxiety. You can't leave. You can't win. You can only endure and watch as the resources dwindle, the morale crumbles, and the hope slowly leaks out of your fortress like blood from a wound. The siege mentality isn't a state of mind. It's a slow, grinding death of the spirit, and it's the price you pay for living in a target. The external siege is a visible, understandable threat. But the castle harbors a more intimate, insidious danger that operates in whispers and shadows, your own family. While you're watching the horizon for enemies, the real threat might be sharing your bloodline, your table and your name. In the medieval world, family isn't a sanctuary. It's the most dangerous political faction you'll ever face. Let's start with marriage, the foundation of this glorious trap. You don't marry for love. The concept is laughable, a luxury for peasants and poets. You marry for land, for alliances, for a temporary peace treaty with a neighboring lord who would otherwise be sharpening knives with your name on them. Your spouse is a stranger, often a teenager, delivered to your castle like a shipment of strategic goods. The wedding night isn't romance. It's a contractual obligation, a public performance of dynastic continuity witnessed by God and a dozen nobles to ensure there's no backing out. Your bed isn't for pleasure. It's a bargaining table where the future of your estate is negotiated with your body. And the pressure begins immediately. You need an heir, a male heir, not a daughter. Daughters are bargaining chips to be married off later, but they don't secure your lineage. Your wife's primary function, her sole purpose in the eyes of everyone from the king to the lowest servant, is to produce a son. Every month that passes without a pregnancy is a silent crisis. Every daughter born is a quiet failure. The weight of your entire bloodline, generations of conquest and accumulation, rests on the fragile health of a woman you barely know and the gender of a baby that hasn't even been conceived. It turns the most personal of acts into a state affair, a source of constant grinding anxiety. Now let's say you get your heir. Congratulations. You've just created your greatest rival. From the moment your son can walk, he's a symbol of your eventual obsolescence. The nobles watch him, court him, whisper in his ear. They tell him he'd be a better lord, a stronger leader, that your strategies are outdated, your grip is weakening. Your own son becomes the natural focal point for every disgruntled vassal and ambitious courtier. You love him, but you can't trust him. You must train him to rule, but every lesson in statecraft is also a lesson in how to eventually replace you. It's a psychological nightmare, raising your own successor, knowing his success requires your failure, your death. And then there are the other relatives, the spare heirs, the younger brothers. In a system where only one son inherits the title and land, the others are left with nothing but ambition and a famous name. They are powder kegs of resentment, living in your castle, eating your food, and dreaming of the day you have a convenient accident. Your brother, the one you played with as a child, is now the most logical candidate to sponsor your assassination. He has the bloodline to claim the title and the motive to see you gone. Every family gathering is a potential coup in waiting. For women, the trap is even more diabolical. As a wife, your value is your womb and your bloodline. If you fail to produce a son, you can be set aside, accused of barrenness, packed off to a nunnery while your husband finds a more fruitful replacement. If your husband dies, you become a prize, a key to the castle itself. You'll be remarried immediately, your body and your property handed to another man to control. You have no autonomy. You are a vessel for lineage and a deed to land. Your thoughts, your desires, your happiness are irrelevant. Your only power lies in manipulation, in whispering in your husband's ear, in forming secret alliances, in using the only weapons you have, gossip, influence, and the children you bear. The emotional landscape is a barren wasteland. Affection is a vulnerability. Love is a strategic error. You can't confide in your spouse. They have their own family allegiances. You can't fully embrace your children. They are pawns and potential rivals. You are isolated in a crowd of people who share your name. The constant calculation is exhausting. Is that compliment from your cousin genuine, or is it the prelude to a request for money or land? Is your daughter's illness a tragedy, or a convenient way for your rival to break her betrothal to his son? There are no simple emotions. There are only political consequences. This is the ultimate castle paradox. You built this fortress to protect your family, to create a dynasty that will last for centuries. But in doing so, you've turned your family into a nest of vipers, each one waiting for the right moment to strike. The thick walls keep your enemies out, but they also keep the betrayal in, letting it simmer and fester in the damp, cold rooms. You sleep with a dagger under your pillow, not just because of external threats, but because the person who brings you your breakfast might be the same person who plans to poison your dinner. The family trap is the most secure prison of all, because the locks are on the inside, and the jailers are the people you're supposed to love. Surviving the family politics requires a strong stomach and a stronger will, but what happens when your own body, the one thing you're supposed to be able to rely on, turns against you? In a medieval castle, getting sick isn't an inconvenience. It's a potential death sentence that launches you into a terrifying world of mystical theories and butchery disguised as medicine. The healthcare system is designed to finish what the illness started. It begins with diagnosis, and it's never good news. According to the leading medical minds, your body is governed by 4 humours: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Your health depends on their perfect balance. Have a fever? That's clearly too much blood. The solution? Bloodletting. A barber surgeon, yes, the same guy who just gave you a terrible haircut, arrives with a lancet or, if you're lucky, a hungry leech. He drains your excess blood into a bowl, weakening you further while the actual infection runs rampant. Feeling melancholic? That's an excess of black bile. The cure? Purgatives. Herbal concoctions that have you vomiting or worse, draining what little strength and hydration you have left. The treatment is often more deadly than the disease. Now, let's say you have a more visible problem, a nasty cut from a hunting accident that's turning red and swollen. Or maybe you took an arrow in the shoulder during a skirmish. Congratulations, you now get to experience surgery. There is no anesthesia. There is only pain. Maybe they'll give you a leather strap to bite on or get you drunk on strong wine. The tools are iron, heated in a fire not for sterilization. Germ theory is centuries away, but because a red-hot knife cauterizes the wound as it cuts, which they think stops the bad air from getting in. The surgeon, who probably learned his craft on a battlefield, saws and slices while you scream. The goal isn't comfort, it's speed. If you pass out from the agony, that's considered a bonus. And infection, it's inevitable. That poultice of moldy bread and herbs they pack into your wound isn't penicillin. It's a science experiment on your rotting flesh. The bandages are scraps of old linen, reused and never properly cleaned. Sepsis sets in. Your wound oozes pus, smells like death, and the fever returns higher this time. The doctor might decide to apply more leeches or perhaps a poultice made of crushed earthworms and dung to draw out the poison. They're not trying to kill you. They genuinely believe this is helping. That's the most terrifying part. The butchery is performed with absolute, confident certainty. For internal ailments, the options are even more abstract. A persistent cough? Must be an imbalance of the phlegm. Chest pain? Clearly your heart is too moist. The prescription's read like a witch's shopping list. Powdered unicorn horn, which is usually narwhal tusk, dried viper's flesh, potions made with mercury and lead. These remedies are often toxic, slowly poisoning you while doing nothing for the original illness. And through it all, the cost is astronomical. The rarer and more exotic the ingredient, the more effective it's presumed to be. You're not just paying for your health, you're funding a merchant's retirement with placebos that are actively harming you. Then there's childbirth, the female battlefield. This is where the castle's dangers converge for a woman. There are no painkillers, no understanding of hygiene. Midwives do their best with folklore and experience, but if the baby is breech or the cord is wrapped around its neck, there are no options. Hemorrhage is a death sentence. Infection after childbirth, childbed fever, is so common it's expected. You go into labor surrounded by the castle's damp and dirt, attended by people with unwashed hands, and you pray. That's the primary medical intervention, prayer. Your life and the life of your child are in the hands of God and a woman who might also be the local pig breeder. The psychological impact is profound. Every sniffle, every cough, every minor ache carries the seed of terror. Is this the one? Is this the cold that turns into the lung rot that kills you by spring? You can't trust your own body. You live in a state of low-grade hypochondria, hyper-aware of every twinge and rumble. When you do get sick, the fear is almost as bad as the illness itself. You know the cure will be painful, expensive, and potentially fatal. So you hide your symptoms, you power through fevers, you bind wounds tightly and hope for the best, avoiding the healers at all costs. Your body is a traitor, and the doctors are its accomplices. In the castle, health isn't a right, it's a fleeting, miraculous exception, and sickness is the default state of existence, waiting for its moment to pounce. So you've survived the family scheming and the medical butchery, your body intact, but your nerves frayed. Now you face an enemy more subtle than any rival, more corrosive than any damp. Sheer, soul-crushing boredom. The castle isn't just cold and dangerous, it's profoundly, mind-numbingly dull. The excitement of feasts and hunts is a rare glitter on a vast, grey ocean of monotony, and you are slowly drowning in it. Your days are a perfect circle of repetition. You wake in the same damp bed. You eat the same salted food. You hear the same complaints from the same petitioners. You take the same walk along the same wall walk, looking out at the same unchanging landscape. The castle is a loop, a beautiful stone-carved loop from which there is no escape. There are no new faces unless they're enemies or potential marriage alliances, which amounts to the same thing. There is no new music, just the same minstrel playing the same 3 songs badly. There are no new books, unless you count a religious text you've read 100 times. Your world is incredibly small, and you have memorized every crack in its walls. Let's talk about entertainment, or the devastating lack thereof. The fabled jousts and tournaments. They happen a handful of times a year if you're lucky. They are the Super Bowl of your existence, and the off-season is eternal. For the other 360 days, what do? You might play chess, but you've beaten everyone in the castle so many times they refuse to play you. You might hunt, but even that becomes a chore. The same woods, the same prey, the same muddy return. For women, the options are even more limited. Embroidery, prayer, and gossip. That's the triumvirate of female leisure. You stitch the same patterns, you pray the same prayers, you whisper the same rumors about the same people until the words lose all meaning and become just sounds you make to pass the time until you die. The isolation is psychological quicksand. You are cut off from the world. News travels slowly, distorted by time and distance. A war could have started and ended 3 months ago, and you're just hearing a confused version of its beginning. You have no idea what's happening in the next kingdom, let alone in Italy or the Holy Land. Your mind, starved for stimulus, begins to turn inward. You start to notice things you shouldn't, the way a certain servant always avoids your gaze. The strange pattern of moss growing on the courtyard wall. You assign vast, cosmic significance to tiny, meaningless events because your brain is desperate for a puzzle to solve, a narrative to follow. This is when the paranoia we discussed earlier truly blooms. Boredom is the fertilizer for conspiracy theories. That casual remark from your brother wasn't just a comment on the weather. It was a coded message about his plans to usurp you. The fact that the cook served turnips again isn't just monotony. It's a subtle insult orchestrated by your wife's family. With nothing else to do, your mind weaves elaborate dark tapestries from the thinnest of threads. You become a detective in a mystery where every clue is imaginary, and the only suspect is everyone you know. The crushing weight of this emptiness manifests physically. You develop a lethargy that no amount of sleep can cure. Your limbs feel heavy. Getting out of bed becomes a monumental effort. You stare out of your arrow-slit window for hours, watching the clouds move, tracking the sun's path across the sky, measuring your life in the slow dance of shadows on the stone floor. Time doesn't fly. It crawls. It drags itself across the castle stones like a wounded animal, and you are forced to watch every painful, laborious inch of its progress. This is the great unspoken torture of castle life. The body can endure cold and hunger. The spirit can endure fear and suspicion. But the mind cannot endure nothingness. It revolts. It either shuts down into a vegetative state or it spirals into madness. You start talking to yourself. You have long, involved conversations with the portraits of your ancestors. You become obsessed with trivialities. The perfect alignment of the dining table, the specific fold of your napkin, because controlling these tiny details is the only power you have left in a world that offers no real choices. The castle, in all its stone grandeur, is the perfect machine for manufacturing madness. It removes all novelty, all spontaneity, all surprise. It reduces life to a set of predictable, repetitive rituals in a fixed, unchanging space. You aren't just a lord or a lady. You are a laboratory rat in a very beautiful, very cold maze, and the scientists have all gone home. The boredom doesn't just make you sad. It remakes you. It sandpapers away your personality, your curiosity, your joy, until all that's left is a hollowed-out shell pacing the same familiar stones, waiting for a death that suddenly doesn't seem so frightening, because at least it will be a change of scenery. While you're slowly succumbing to madness from boredom, a completely different reality is unfolding just beneath your notice. The castle isn't just your home. It's a complex ecosystem with a hidden hierarchy more intricate than your own. The servants. You think they're invisible, silent fixtures like the tables and chairs, but they see everything. They know everything. And they are fighting a silent, ruthless war right under your nose, where the spoils are survival and the weapon is information. You never truly have privacy. A servant is always there, stoking the fire, clearing the plates, making your bed. They move like ghosts, and you learn to ignore them. Big mistake. That young boy quietly pouring your wine. He's counting how many cups you drain each night, information that will be sold to your political rivals for a handful of copper pennies. The maid who comes to empty your chamber pot? She's checking for signs of blood or illness, any weakness that could be exploited. Your most intimate moments, your arguments with your spouse, your private fears whispered in the dark, are not private. The walls have ears, and the ears belong to people you pay to be there. This creates a shadow economy that operates entirely on gossip. Information is currency here, more valuable than silver. The cook knows you are sleeping with the stable master's wife, because the stable boy who cleans the hayloft saw you, and told the kitchen scullion, who traded that information to the cook for an extra portion of meat. The cook then sells that information to the stable master's rival, who uses it to blackmail the stable master. This isn't just drama, it's the real governance of the castle. Alliances between noble families are decided in the Great Hall, but they are made or broken in the kitchen, the stables, and the laundry. And the servants have their own brutal hierarchy. The steward at the top, a figure of immense power you barely acknowledge, controls the purse strings and the stores. He can skim funds, sell your grain, and you'd never know. The cook decides who eats well and who gets the gristly scraps. The chamberlain controls access to you, deciding which petitioners get through and which are turned away, for a price. At the very bottom, the scullions and turnspits live in a world of grease, smoke, and constant threat of violence from those above them. Their war isn't for influence, it's for the literal scraps from your table and a corner to sleep in that isn't actively dripping. You are a pawn in their game. Your moods, your preferences, your habits, they are all data points to be recorded and traded. Let slip that you dislike the new wine from Aquitaine, and suddenly the cellarer is mysteriously able to procure the more expensive vintage from Burgundy, padding his pockets and making you indebted to his resourcefulness. Express concern about a certain knight's loyalty, and within days, fabricated evidence of his treachery will conveniently find its way to you, planted by a servant paid by that knight's enemy. You think you're making decisions, but you're often just ratifying outcomes that have already been engineered in the servant's hall. The power dynamic is a bizarre paradox. You have the power of life and death over them. You could have any one of them flogged or thrown in a dungeon on a whim, but collectively they have a power over you that is far more subtle and insidious. They can make your life run smoothly, or they can make it a living hell. They can ensure your clothes are clean and your meals are hot, or they can lose your favorite doublet and ensure your stew is always cold. They can spread rumors that you are generous and wise, or they can whisper that you are weak and sickly. Your reputation, your comfort, and often your safety are in their calloused hands. This forces you into a constant, exhausting performance of authority. You must be stern but fair, generous but not a fool. You must dispense justice in their disputes, knowing that any decision will make you enemies in one faction or another. You can't be too familiar, or you lose respect. You can't be too distant, or you become a target. You are managing them, yes, but you are also being managed by them. It's a delicate, unspoken dance, where everyone knows the steps, but no one acknowledges the music. The truth is, the servants aren't just running your household, they are running you. They are the castle's central nervous system, and you are just the brain, isolated in your chamber, receiving filtered, manipulated information and issuing commands that will be interpreted, delayed or ignored as it suits their purposes. You rule the land, the titles, the armies, but they rule the castle. And in the endless, grinding daily battle for survival within these stone walls, their power is often the one that matters most. You may own the deed to the castle, but they hold the keys to your sanity, and they know it. While the servants wage their secret war in the shadows, there is another, far more powerful force watching your every move, one you cannot dismiss or ignore: God, or rather, God's earthly representatives. The castle chapel isn't just a place for quiet contemplation. It's the headquarters of a surveillance system that reaches into your soul, and the priest is its chief operative, reporting to a higher pay grade in Rome. You wake to the sound of the chapel bell, you eat your meals to its chime, you end your day with its final toll. Time itself doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the church. This bell is the soundtrack to your life, a constant metallic reminder that you are being monitored by a celestial bureaucracy that has opinions on everything from how you pray to how you copulate. Miss a service? That's a sin. Eat meat on a Friday? Sin. Have a lustful thought about the chambermaid on a Tuesday afternoon? Double sin. The ledger is always open, and the priest is always watching, taking notes. Let's talk about your personal confessor. He's not your friend. He's a spiritual accountant. You kneel in the dark confessional, the wood cold against your knees, and you list your transgressions. But this isn't just about absolution. Every confession is intelligence. When you confess to losing your temper with a vassal, the priest now knows about a political weakness. When you express doubts about your faith during a siege, he now knows your resolve is cracking. This information doesn't stay in the confessional. It travels. It goes to the bishop who might be allied with your rival. Your most vulnerable moments, the fears you wouldn't tell your own spouse, are now commodities in the church's vast network of influence. The chapel itself is a beautiful lie. The stained glass windows depicting saints and martyrs aren't just pretty pictures. They are a constant visual pressure. The stone saints with their judgmental eyes seem to follow you as you walk to take communion. The flickering candles don't provide comfort. They create dancing shadows that look like demons on the walls, a not-so-subtle reminder of what awaits you if you step out of line. Even here, in the house of God, you can't relax. You must kneel at the right angle, chant the right responses in Latin, a language you don't understand, and maintain an expression of pious devotion, even when your mind is wandering to tax collections or border disputes. Then there are the relics, the castle's pride and joy, a finger bone of St. Sebastian, a splinter from the true cross. These objects of veneration are your spiritual insurance policy, and they are astronomically expensive. You've paid more for that dried-up finger than you have for a new roof. You parade them on feast days. You pray to them for victory in battle, for a male heir, for good weather. And when your prayers aren't answered, when you lose the battle, when your wife bears another daughter, when the rains flood your fields, the implication is clear. You didn't pray hard enough. You didn't give enough alms. Your faith is weak. The failure is never the relic's. It's always yours. It's a divine gaslighting that keeps you perpetually striving, perpetually donating, perpetually guilty. The Church's control extends to your very body. It dictates when you can have sex, not during Lent, not on Sundays, not on holy days. It dictates how many children you should have, as many as God provides, which is to say, as many as your wife can survive birthing. It can annul your marriage, rendering your children illegitimate, if it decides your union was somehow improper. Your lineage, the very thing you're killing yourself to protect, can be undone with a papal decree. Your power, which feels so absolute within your castle walls, is a fragile thing when measured against the power of excommunication. A spiritual death sentence that turns you into a social leper and releases your vassals from all oaths of loyalty. So you perform. You attend Mass with a fervor you don't feel. You drop gold coins into the collection plate with a showy generosity that hides your resentment. You consult the priest on matters of state, not because you value his counsel, but because you fear his opposition. You live under the godly gaze, a constant oppressive scrutiny that questions your motives, your actions, and your worthiness. The castle protects your body from earthly enemies, but it offers no refuge from this heavenly inquisition. In fact, the chapel is its command center. You are living in a panopticon designed by divinity, where the warden is invisible, his guards are everywhere, and the sentence is eternal. You kneel in the chapel, performing piety for the ever-watchful God, but when you rise, you are supposed to be the one in charge. The Lord, the absolute power within these walls. This is the greatest lie the castle tells, the foundational myth of your entire existence. Your power isn't absolute. It's a fragile, trembling consensus, and you are one bad harvest, one unpopular decision, one whispered rumor away from losing it all. Let's start with your knights, the muscle behind your throne. You don't command their loyalty, you rent it. They have their own lands, their own men, their own ambitions. They swear oaths of fealty, but those oaths are written on water. They follow you because it's currently profitable, because you win battles, because you grant them spoils. But let your grip falter, show sickness, hesitation, or poverty, and those same loyal knights will be the first to calculate how much they could get from pledging to your rival. Every command you give is a test. Push them too hard, ask for too much, and you'll see the subtle shift in their eyes, the slight delay in their bow. Your authority is a performance, and your knights are a tough crowd, always ready to boo you off the stage. Then there are the merchants, the true silent powers. You look down on them, of course, they're not of noble blood, but your castle doesn't run on blood, it runs on goods. That Flemish cloth for your new tunic, the spices for your feasts, the iron for your weapons, all controlled by merchants. They have networks that span continents, and they can strangle your castle with a few well-placed letters. Raise their taxes too high, and suddenly the salt doesn't arrive. The wine shipments are delayed. The quality of the goods plummets while the prices soar. You need them far more than they need you. They bow and scrape in your presence, but they leave your hall and laugh all the way to their counting houses because they know a simple truth. Gold is a thicker liquid than blood, and it flows where they direct it. And the commoners, the peasants who work your land, you think you own them. You own their labor, but you don't own their hearts. Their obedience is a thin veneer over a deep well of resentment. They see you feasting in your castle while their children go hungry. They see you hunting for sport while they hunt for survival. A single spark, a new tax, a failed harvest, the rumor that you're a werewolf, can ignite a rebellion that will see your own fields burning and a mob of pitchforks at your gate. You rule by fear, but fear is a double-edged sword. It keeps them in line, but it also means you can never truly rest. The smiling face of the peasant who brings you a chicken could be the last thing you see before a dagger finds your ribs. Your power over them is based entirely on their belief in your power, and beliefs can change overnight. Even within your own family, as we've seen, power is a shifting sand. Your heir is waiting for you to die. Your spouse might be plotting with their own family against you. Your cousins are measuring your neck for the axe. Every compliment is a potential manipulation. Every gift a possible bribe. Every show of affection a carefully calculated move in the endless game of dynastic chess. You sleep with one eye open, not just for foreign invaders, but for the person who sleeps beside you. So what is your power, really? It's the ability to temporarily coordinate these competing forces. It's the skill of balancing the knight's ambitions against the merchant's greed, against the peasant's endurance. It's the exhausting day-in, day-out work of convincing everyone that you are in control, even when you're screaming inside. You don't issue commands, you negotiate, you don't make decrees, you propose deals. You are less a king and more a perpetually anxious manager of a very volatile, very armed corporation where everyone is applying for your job. The crown is heavy, yes, but its true weight isn't in the gold. It's in the constant grinding pressure of knowing that your position is a collective hallucination. The moment enough people stop believing in your power, it vanishes. Poof, gone. The castle, the lands, the title, it all becomes meaningless. You are an actor on a stage made of stone, delivering lines written by circumstance to an audience that is just waiting for you to miss a cue. The illusion of power is the most draining performance of all because you can never, ever leave the stage. The curtain never falls. The applause is just the sound of people waiting for you to fail. Maintaining the illusion of power is a full-time job, but it's not the only performance draining your resources. The castle itself, your magnificent stone status symbol, is a ravenous, gaping mouth that devours money with a bottomless appetite. You aren't just a lord. You're the chief executive of a crumbling, inefficient and astronomically expensive business that is always on the verge of bankruptcy. Let's start with the most obvious drain, the stones. The castle isn't a static monument, it's a dying beast that constantly sheds its skin. Mortar crumbles in the damp. Frost gets into cracks and prizes them open. Roofs leak, walls settle. There is no end to it. You employ a small army of masons, carpenters and laborers just to fight a losing battle against entropy. And the materials? Not cheap. Quarrying stone, transporting it, the sheer man-hours of skilled labor. It's a financial hemorrhage that never clots. That new decorative window in the chapel you thought would impress the bishop? It cost more than your entire harvest from 3 villages. Every time it rains, you don't just see water, you see silver coins washing down your walls and soaking into the ground. Then there's the staff. The servants we discussed aren't just spies, they're a massive payroll. The steward, the cook, the grooms, the maids, the guards, the stable hands, the huntsman, the falconer. The list is endless. They all need to be fed, housed and paid. You are the sole employer for a small town living within your walls. A bad harvest doesn't just mean boring food, it means you can't pay your guards. And suddenly the very people who are supposed to protect you become your biggest security risk. You lie awake at night doing mental arithmetic, calculating how many weeks of grain are left in the stores, how many soldiers you can afford to keep on retainer, which servants you might have to dismiss to make ends meet. It's a constant high-stakes juggling act. But the most ruinous expense isn't the necessary upkeep, it's the performative spending, hospitality. You are obliged by the rigid laws of status to be generous to a fault. A visiting noble arrives, you must throw a feast. A bishop passes through, you must offer lavish gifts. A travelling minstrel sings your praises, you must reward him with a silver coin, not copper. To do otherwise is to be branded weak, poor and insignificant. So you pour money you don't have into displays of wealth you can't sustain. You serve peacock and swan at a feast while quietly pawning your wife's jewelry to pay the butcher. You are trapped in a vicious cycle of competitive consumption, trying to keep up with the Joneses in the next castle over, even if the Joneses are also secretly mortgaging their ancestral lands to a Venetian banker. And let's talk about war, the ultimate money furnace. Raising an army doesn't mean pointing to a few knights and saying you and you. It means paying for their armor, their weapons, their horses, and their food for the duration of the campaign. A single day of battle can bankrupt you. A siege? That's a financial death spiral. You're paying your own soldiers while also watching your productive lands outside the walls get burned. Your income for the next 5 years going up in smoke. Victory can be almost as costly as defeat. The spoils might be great, but the bill for getting them is often greater. You conquer a new tract of land, only to realize you now have to pay to garrison it, administer it, and defend it from its former owner who wants it back. The pressure is relentless. You are squeezed from all sides. Your peasants think you're infinitely wealthy, bathing in gold coins. Your knights think you're hoarding treasure. Your family expects a life of luxury. The church expects its tithes. The king expects his taxes. But you're staring at ledger books filled with red ink, trying to decide which essential part of your crumbling home you can neglect for one more year. Do you fix the leaky gatehouse roof, or do you pay for the spring campaign? Do you buy new armor for your guards, or do you restock the grain stores? The castle, this symbol of permanence and power, is the most fragile thing you own. Its grandeur is a facade painted over a foundation of debt and desperation. You don't own a castle, you serve it. You are its chief fundraiser, its desperate accountant, its anxious caretaker. Every gust of wind that shakes a loose shutter, every drip of water that finds a new path through the stone, every cheer from the great hall during a feast is the sound of your fortunes slowly, inexorably draining away. The cost of upkeep isn't just a line in a budget, it's a slow financial bleeding that weakens you with every passing season, turning your mighty fortress into a gilded cage whose lock is poverty. You've managed the finances, navigated the politics, and survived the daily grind of discomfort. But the castle has one final universal joke to play on you, the punchline that awaits every single person within its walls, regardless of status, your own mortality. All the power, all the wealth, all the stone walls in the world can't protect you from the Grim Reaper, who is a more frequent and unwelcome guest in your home than any travelling minstrel or distant cousin. Let's start with the children. That heir you worked so hard to produce. The odds are stacked against them from their first breath. Infant mortality isn't a tragedy, it's an expectation. Nearly half of all children never see their 5th birthday. A fever, a cough, a bout of diarrhea, things we wouldn't blink at today, are death sentences here. You swaddle them in the best wool, you have wet nurses attend them, you pray over their crib, and still, you find yourself ordering a tiny coffin with terrifying regularity. You don't name them immediately. You wait, holding your breath, hoping they'll last the month. Your legacy isn't a line of mighty warriors, it's a string of small, sad graves in the churchyard, each one a monument to a future that never was. For women, childbirth is the front line of this war. It's not a beautiful miracle, it's a bloody, terrifying gauntlet. There are no painkillers, no sterile conditions, no emergency C-sections. You go into labor surrounded by the castle's inherent filth, attended by women with the best intentions and the worst medical knowledge. Hemorrhage, infection, a baby stuck in the birth canal, these aren't complications. They're death sentences. Surviving one childbirth is lucky. Surviving 10 is a statistical miracle. Many women write their wills before they go into labor because they know there's a very real chance they're walking to their own execution. Your primary function as a noblewoman is to produce heirs, and the price for failure, or even for success, is often your life. For everyone, death is casual, constant, and lurks in the most mundane places. That small cut on your hand from sharpening a quill, it gets infected. A week later, your arm is swollen and purple with streaks of red crawling toward your heart. The chill you caught from the damp in your bedchamber, it settles in your lungs, turning into a rattling, phlegm-filled cough that slowly drowns you from the inside over 3 agonizing weeks. A fall from a horse, a piece of bad pork, a splinter from the banister, any of these can be the end of you. There are no antibiotics, there are no x-rays, there is only prayer, questionable herbs, and the slow, inevitable decline. And when death finally comes for you, the castle's final indignities begin. Your body is prepared by servants who may or may not have washed their hands. You're dressed in your finest clothes, which will be stolen off your corpse the moment you're in the ground, if your heirs aren't vigilant. You lie in state in the chapel, but the castle doesn't stop for you. Life goes on. The feasts continue, the politics intensify. The scheming for your title begins before your body is even cold. Your death isn't a tragedy, it's an opportunity. For everyone but you. Your funeral is a political event, not a moment of grief. Who attends? Who doesn't? Who weeps the loudest? It's all calculated. Your tomb, that grand stone effigy you paid a fortune for, will be your final frozen performance of power. But it's a lie. Within a generation, your name will be a footnote, a dusty portrait on the wall that your grandchildren can't be bothered to dust. The castle, the lands, the title, it all passes to someone else, and your memory fades faster than the gold leaf on your tomb. The legacy you killed yourself to build is fragile. A single weak heir, a clever rival, a bad harvest. Any of these can unravel generations of work in a single season. The castle you poured your wealth and your life into maintaining will stand long after your name is forgotten, housing new families, new dramas, new people who will make the same mistakes and suffer the same indignities. You are not a permanent fixture. You are a temporary tenant, a caretaker, a brief flicker of consciousness in a stone shell that has seen thousands like you come and go. This is the castle's ultimate lesson. The final, crushing truth it imparts to every resident. All the power, the wealth, the status, it's all a temporary loan. The cold, the damp, the disease, the politics, they all conspire to remind you of your own shocking fragility. You built a fortress to defy death, to create something that would last forever. But in the end, the castle itself is the only thing that endures. You are just a temporary occupant, a ghost in the making, and the stones will forget you long before the worms have finished their work. So you've made it. You've reached the end of your journey through the grim reality of castle life. You've faced the cold, the stench, the parasites, the betrayal, the financial ruin, and the ever-present shadow of death. You've navigated this beautiful, brutal cage. And now, as you look around at the towering stone that has been your home, your prison, the final sobering truth settles upon you. The dream of the castle, that romantic Hollywood fantasy of chivalry and grandeur, is a lie. It was always a lie, and it's crumbling, just like the mortar between these stones. The castle wasn't built for living, it was built for dominating, for intimidating, for projecting an image of unshakable power in a world that was, in reality, constantly shaking. Every single architectural feature, from the narrow arrow slits to the imposing gatehouse, was designed for war and control, not for human comfort. The moment you tried to make a home out of this war machine, you lost. The castle will always prioritize its defensive integrity over your warmth, your privacy, your sanity. You tried to domesticate a dragon, and you've spent your life getting scorched by its breath. Let's just take a moment and look at what this experience has cost you. Physically, you're a wreck. Your joints ache constantly from the damp. Your skin is a roadmap of flea bites and old scars. Your teeth are rotten, your gums are sore, and you have a permanent low-grade cough from all the smoke and the endless chill. You're probably half deaf from the constant noise of hammers, shouts, and clanging metal. You're malnourished from a monotonous, salt-heavy diet, yet somehow also bloated and suffering from a perpetual grinding indigestion. This isn't the body of a powerful lord or lady. It's the body of a survivor of a prolonged, low-intensity disaster. And what about your mind? Mentally, you're hollowed out. The constant performance of power, the endless passing of political threats, the surveillance from both servants and God, it has sanded down your personality into a smooth, featureless mask. Do you even know who you are anymore beneath the titles and the protocols? Your spirit, which was once capable of joy and curiosity, has been starved by the brutal monotony and relentless anxiety. You find yourself dreaming of silence and warmth, not of glory or conquest. The castle hasn't fortified your spirit, it has besieged it, and the walls have fallen. And what do you have to show for it all? A mountain of debt to merchants and masons, a family that may or may not be plotting your demise, a line of succession that hangs by the fragile thread of a child's health. A reputation that is one bad harvest or one clever rumor away from collapsing. The power you wield is illusory, a fragile consensus that could shatter at any moment. You are the captain of a ship that is perpetually on the verge of sinking, and you're spending all your energy bailing water just to keep it from going under right now. The great, tragic joke in all of this is that the peasants in the village below, the ones you pity, might have been better off. Yes, their lives are hard, undeniably, but they have the sun, they have fresh air. They have families built on something closer to genuine affection, because their marriages aren't always strategic weapons. They have moments of real joy in their festivals, their songs, their simple pleasures. They are not constantly performing. They are not living in a gilded cage, watched by everyone. Their misery is direct and physical. Yours is a complex, soul-crushing cocktail of physical discomfort and psychological torment. You have all the problems of a peasant, plus the unique miseries of nobility. So the dream dies. Not with a bang, but with a slow, cold, damp sigh. It dies in the realization that you have sacrificed your health, your happiness, and your very humanity at the altar of a stone idol that doesn't care if you live or die. The castle will endure. It will stand for centuries, long after your name is forgotten, long after your bloodline has faded into dust. It will house new fools who will make the same mistakes, who will believe the same lies, who will shiver in the same drafts and scheme in the same shadows. You leave this story not with a crown, but with a profound sense of relief that your tenure in this beautiful hell is over. The castle doesn't create legends, it consumes them. It doesn't build dynasties, it grinds them down into the mortar between its stones. The next time you see a picture of a majestic castle on a hill, remember the truth. Remember the cold, remember the smell, remember the fear, remember the itching. It wasn't a palace, it was a beautifully crafted punishment for the crime of wanting power. The dream of the castle is dead, and frankly, it deserved to die. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you found this perspective interesting, consider liking this video and subscribing for more deep dives into the realities of history. We'll see you in the next one.